I believe it's necessary to give a big picture context. Now that we are out of that place and I'm moving here and there, I believe there's no enough context. So a timeline in brief was I started working at that forest for 3 months, and then I have to visit Hyderabad. 4 months there, and I came back like in June. It's almost been a month, and now I'm out of that place. But to start from very beginning, I met Rishi. Rishi is the steward name, by the way. Around Feb last year, I worked with him on a nursery. Now, this nursery was a collaboration between three units. Units is like zones, and each zone has a steward. Rishi was the brains behind that nursery. The unit I used to work back then, the same place which I have workshop right now, as we are part of that collaboration, we share like workers. Tuesday and Friday was our turn. In that process, I used to work with Rishi, and one day he mentioned that he's traveling soon and he needs someone to um, house sit his place in his forest, and he invited me to visit. And that visit happened 2 weeks later. That particular day, I'm sure that some kind of stars aligned, because that was like a best introduction to that place possible. I mean, I can't get into a lot of details, but I got to see what kind of situation that particular forest in, that unique situation, and how they dealt with their neighbors, and what kind of threats that challenges its own identity, and how Rishi dealt with it, and how personal is it to him, the habits and the identities he has to lose to put all the time he had into that place. So whatever you see in that forest is his time that shaped into like this physical form of vegetation and whatnot. And that particular day, a lot of things happened around that area which weren't usual, but happened that day. So that was the best introduction. I kind of fancy the image of myself if I was able to handle those challenges, that particular situation. And at that time, whatever expected of me was, I felt it's doable, you know. I was told my purpose or my work over there was mostly to work on the borders. Like, that forest is mostly surrounded by private land, private cashew land. So I have to keep the fences clean, make sure nothing, no trees or crawlers shade those neighbors' cashew trees, and when there is clean, there is less friction from the neighbors, and basically make sure no drama breaks up. I didn't immediately decide to move there, but between that visit and my actually moving there, there is some stuff happened. Like the whole nursery thing crumbled. It's like a whole big story. That will take another day. And there was some political changes around Oroville, and they were clearing some land to build up a hill. Like, I need to give a lot more context for you to understand, but just understand that dynamics changed, and one day I decided, like, oh, it's, you have to jump into it, and I did. The first month I've been there was fairly uh, good. I liked it. I didn't much have to compromise on my runnings and my lunch and films. I was still able to do all of those while maintaining my presence at the forest. Presence was another thing. There should always be someone at the forest. If there is anything happens, the communication has to be fast. It's not like things can happen, things will happen. Like, there is this person who is like a thief. If he realizes that there is no one looking, there is no one is maintaining the place, he'll casually just cut it one or two trees and put it in his tractor and gone. Before we realize, someone just infiltrated. Things like that will happen, not can. So stuff like that, it's important to always be at that place. um, and I was mostly able to manage it, because there was this Amma who used to be there like from 9 to 5. So at that time I used to go out. She used to handle the whatever things need to be done inside the forest while I was managing the fences. She only knew Tamil. I knew very little of it. But there was this Nepali worker who visits once or twice a week. He knows Tamil, and I used to I used to talk to him in Hindi, and he used to explain to her. That was interesting. The whole workers thing. I mean, when I moved to that place, Rishi started to travel, and I used to communicate with him to understand what need to be done in the forest, and I then used to convey to them. But as far as that physical space is concerned, I was managing it, and they used to look at me to let them know what need to be done. I don't know whether I can call them subordinates, but if we can call them subordinates, it's my first time managing people. Even in the farm I used to work, there's always seniors, and work was delegated to me and I used to do. But this is the first time I have to give work to people, and that gave a lot of insight into how I deal with those situations and how to deal with them when you have no direct communication. The actual work that need to be done, there was not a lot. Once or twice a week, if you spend the entire day, it's good. That can be done. There was this silence and this solitude that was always there, because at nights you're the only one over there. Like in a 2 kilometer radius, there was no one. So even to go on rounds around the fence, I used to go at night because I loved to work with torchlight and everything. um, it was great. I felt it was working. Then cyclone happened. Now this cyclone was a whole different business, It changed everything overnight. Because the next day all I could see was just fallen trees around me, and I couldn't go out of the forest for like 2 days. The roads are blocked outside and inside. Even I couldn't find my way around my own place. I wish I vlogged back then, because it would have been like a good content. Routes inside the forest was not the main concern here. The concern, this ticking bomb in my head and for most people, was this trees that fell over the fences into the neighbors. At least like a dozen trees fell over the fences all around the forest, and they need to be cleared, and they need to be cleared fast. The longer the fences are broken, the longer you neglect it. It's like there are clashes with neighbors and whatnot, and cattle can get in, dogs, whatnot, which is a nuisance. So I got to work. For the next 3 weeks, all I did was I borrowed this chainsaw. For the next 3 weeks, that's all, from morning to the evening, all I did was to work on the chainsaw. And that was the first time I was handling chainsaw alone, and there was no workers at that time, because there was no moving. First priority was to clear trees on the fences, fix the fences, clear the routes inside the forest. Which, to give you a context, I naively asked one of the stewards from one of these units. I was like, "Oh, all these trees, fallen trees, they'll take at least 2 months," and he was like, "It will take half a year minimum." And he was right. It's almost a year. We're still working on the damage that cyclone created. The last time the cyclone was that devastating was like in 2012. So this is like a once in a decade kind of cyclone. It was fun though. Not only just us, we everywhere we go, there was like trees everywhere. And after 3 weeks, I got to a place like, okay. And another way, the chainsaw the chainsaw, it was my first time using the chainsaw, and it was pretty evident, because I don't know that you have to mix oil with the petrol to use the chainsaw. I didn't know that. I started to only use petrol, and one day it stopped working. The entire fucking engine is just burnt. Partner of the Rishi, her name was Aarti, and she helped a lot to fix that chainsaw, because man, that was a disaster. That was a disaster purely out of my lack of knowledge and I couldn't. It was even embarrassing to tell people. Yeah, they're like, you don't know even know how a single stroke engine works. Like, uh, never had to deal with it, so. And Rishi was traveling. He was stuck in some other place, and Aarti used to visit once in a while for a few days to check on what the situation is going on and help here and there. I'm grateful for what they have done and for repair for that chainsaw, and they're tolerating my amateur mistakes. Anyway, after that, for the next 1.5 month, 3 times a week, I used to just be at the farm and start to clear a tree after tree, and it continued. Because of this cyclone, I had this opportunity to meet with the neighbors, and some of them are not that friendly. Even this thief, I had clashed with them because there was some trees fell over the fence and he wanted them, but there were our trees. This entire thing, it created a lot of respect towards my father, because at that time he was dealing with some land issues in our native village. So I probably felt same fears that he must have in his experiences that he never shared or I never asked. But I felt more closer, more empathetic to what he must have gone through. All I wanted was like I want to go to Hyderabad and give him a hug. Dealing with the trees on the fence is what mostly kept me awake at night. Either I totally made it up in my head or it's actually present. I'm not sure, but I felt it. And even with the pace I was going, there were clashes. The thief I mentioned, we had some kind of discussion on who, like couple of trees belongs to, and there were a bunch of neighbors. They were quite loud with whatever they're saying in Tamil, which I never understood, but I somehow able to dealt with them. And this was just constant in the head. Trees need to be figured out first, and fences need to be fixed. And all this timber I cut, and to make sure they are not stolen at the middle of the night, which was possible. And this entire thing gave me a perspective of how I deal with my fears. And when a situation is given where I have to either lose trees to someone who has more influence and power, and like that thief, and how would I dealt with situation like that? What are my instincts? Because the Rishi with that place, he had a legacy, and neighbors know him, and most of the around villages know him. To me, I don't want to ruin that. you know I had no background in like forestry. Sometimes I used to dream like I find someone who is more passionate and knowledge toward forestry to replace or like replicate passion that Rishi had to the forest. Because to me, I even shared this with Rishi, is like, to me when I look at a forest, all I see is green leaves, that's all. But there are species, each tree behaves different way. This entire thing I was totally illiterate of. All i all i felt I could contribute was in maintaining the fences, which is what expected of me. For the next 1.5 months, that's what happened. I was trying to, before I left, I made sure I cleared all the routes and fire lines and make sure the fences are all good. And then I left to Hyderabad. In Hyderabad, I discovered this connection with the project because I was able to take it to the next level. And there was this crash that happened which like totally exposed my the mistakes I do in dealing with projects like that. And I was totally into it. First I planned my Hyderabad trip for 3 months. Then after 3 months it's like, okay, this project is still not completing. Then I prolonged it for another month, and even that month was not sufficient. So at the end of 4 months I was like, okay, it's June now. Maybe if I get this June, I was able to complete. um, but no, it didn't look anything like that. There was this call that happened with Rishi, and I mentioned like even if I come back, I'll be split in half, because this project in this crucial stage, my head would be on it. Like I'm willing to come back. I want to come back, um, but I was unsure. But we discussed further, and I was like, okay, if not now, um, I would probably never go back, because once I settle and this 1 month can turn into 2, 3. I don't know when this project will be completed. And first June of this year, I just came back. And when I came back, the entire thing felt different. Rishi was there, and this entire cow angle came in, which I did not expect at all. I was finding every single opportunity to go out and work on the project. Instead, I should be working in the forest. It's about the pacing, right? In my head, it's always like, okay, this project could be completed at any moment right now. So the every moment, every single day, I just need to be on it. So that kind of sentiment, that kind of mindset. I was there. And another thing that pissed off Rishi was the way I brought all of my equipment to my previous farm, because there was this room which I want to use as a workshop, which he didn't like, because he mostly expected my presence in that place, for me to stay there most of the time, and having this workshop somewhere else, way out of the forest, it just doesn't go with that idea. Because every time I was like, okay, I have to leave this place and go to that place and work there for a few hours. People were like, why don't you set up a workshop over there? I just couldn't find a cozy enough place, with less moisture, electricity and Wi-Fi was a thing. They were mostly huts, which is fine to live in and most other needs, but to set up a workshop, you need a environment. I tried for over 2 weeks to be effective at both, forest and project, but by the end, I got worse at both. It made me go crazy. Then I made this decision, to focus on one thing and complete this project. Then I can get back. The one thing I admire from Rishi and Aarti is that how they let go of their habits that define their identity, and to give their time to the forest. And the time manifested into this vegetation, into this physical being. Um, and I had to do the same with this project. But in a position where I don't let that happen, it's like I didn't learn anything from them. It just makes us strangers, which is not how I want this to be or end. So here we are, um, on this 1 month, no volunteering, but stay kind of an agreement in this workshop. It's not gonna be completed in 1 month, but 1 month I can bite a chunk of the project. I hope so, at least. I was planning to go straight home, but this cycle is demanding my attention, and I'm going to the village to fix it. Now I have to buy chicken fried rice. And it's just right there. If I spend 100 rupees a day, it's 3000 rupees per month. I want you to remember that. ఇది కట్ పడండి కటింగ్ బ్లేడ్ కటింగ్. I don't know whether I'm tired or movie is just insufferable. I slept after 20 minutes of the film starting. I couldn't take it. It's this animated sci fi love story.